හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Monday, the 2nd of October 2023. Drug drive. Minister of Health suspends emergency medicine purchases indefinitely. Heavy losses. Recent Sri Lankan Airlines flight delays cost over $6 million, reveals the Minister of Aviation. Lawyers rage. The lawyers' collective calls on the government to withdraw the anti-terrorism and online safety bill.
We urge the government not to table the bill.
The online safety, there is no safety that is prescribed in this.
Human Rights Commission urges government to reconsider the timing of the online safety bill.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟම ඇති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and a warm welcome to you from AdaDerana's English News, First at 9. I'm Jonathan Benedict. Let's dive straight into our top story for the evening. The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation and the Lanka Indian Oil Corporation announced its revised fuel prices with effect from midnight last night. Subsequently, Chinese fuel company Sinopec also announced its revised prices for fuel last evening at a lower price in comparison to the other two fuel companies, with no price revision imposed to 92-octane petrol. Despite these revisions, both chairman of the Three-Wheel Drivers Association, and the Private Bus Owners Association confirmed that neither service's existing fare structure will be impacted. State fuel supplier Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has revised its fuel prices from midnight last night. According to the latest fuel price revision, 92-octane petrol was increased by 4 rupees and currently stands at 365 rupees a litre, while 95-octane petrol is at 420 rupees per litre following a price hike of 3 rupees. Meanwhile, auto diesel and super diesel saw an increase of 10 rupees and 62 rupees to 351 rupees and 421 rupees per litre respectively. Further, the price of a litre of kerosene was increased by 11 rupees to 231 rupees. Concurrently, Lanka IOC also announced an increase in fuel prices in line with the revised prices of Sepetco. Subsequently, the Sinopec fuel company has also revised its fuel prices with effect from last evening. However, the Chinese fuel company has revised the fuel prices at a lower price compared to the other two companies. Accordingly, 95-octane petrol, which was previously at 414 rupees, was increased to 420 rupees per litre, following a price hike of 6 rupees, while super diesel and auto diesel was increased by 61 rupees and 10 rupees at 417 rupees and 348 rupees per litre, respectively. However, they assured no change in price to 92-octane petrol amidst the fuel price revision. Further, the chairman of both the All-Island Three-Wheeler Drivers Association and the Lanka Private Bus Owners Association confirmed that no price increase will be imposed on both three-wheeler and bus fares despite the fuel price hike.
මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ඉන්ධන මිල ඉහළ ගියත් පහළ ගියත් තිරෝධක ගාස්තුව සංශෝධනය කිරීම කියන කාරණාවේදී අපි ගාස්තුව ප්‍රකාශ නොකර ඉන්න තීරණය කළා තියෙනවා. හේතුව මොකද නෙමෙයි මේ ආකාරයෙන් මාසෙන් මාසෙට ගාස්තුව එහා මෙහා වෙද්දී විශේෂයෙන් තිරෝධ ඕනම භාණ්ඩයක විශේෂයෙන් තිරෝධ රථයේ ගාස්තුව ඔහොම එහා මෙහා කරන්න පුළුවන් කමක් නැහැ. ඊයේ මධ්‍යම රාත්‍රියේ සිට ඩීසල් ලීටරයක මිල රුපියල් 10කින් වැඩි වෙලා තියෙනවා. නමුත් බස් ගාස් පිළිබඳ ජාතික ප්‍රතිපත්ති මිල සූත්‍රය අනුව රුපියල් 10කින් ඩීසල් මිල වැඩි වුණාට අපිට බස් ගාස් සංශෝධනයකට යන්න හැකියාවක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. මේ ඩීසල් වැඩිවීම අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ඉදිරියට සිදු වෙමින් තියෙනවා. යම් ආකාරයේ ලබන සැරේ අපිට බස් ගාසුකට යන්න බොහෝ දුරට ඉඩ ඇති වෙයි.
The Sri Lankan Human Rights Commission, drawing attention to the existing provisions of criminal law applicable to the online activity of citizens, has asked the Minister of Public Security, Derana English, to reconsider the timing of the proposed online safety bill. Chairman of the Human Rights Commission, Justice L.T.B. Dehidaniya, in a letter to Minister Derana English, stated that the Commission acknowledges that making the online space in Sri Lanka safer for its citizens is a valuable legislative objective. However, the Commission said that the strengthening of institutional capacity of law enforcement authorities to interpret and apply existing criminal law in good faith should proceed, adding that proceeding with such legislation without institutional reform will irreversibly jeopardize the freedom of speech and expression and the related fundamental rights of the Sri Lankan people. The online safety bill, which was introduced to regulate the digital and social media space, was published in a government gazette. The bill aims to make provisions to prohibit the online communication of certain statements of fact in Sri Lanka, to prevent the use of online accounts and fake online accounts for prohibited purposes, to make provisions to identify and declare online locations used for prohibited purposes in Sri Lanka, and to suppress the financing and other support of communication for false statements of fact. The bill is currently included in the order paper of Parliament to be taken up for discussion tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka, in a letter addressed to the Minister of Public Security, Derana English, said that the Commission observes that law enforcement authorities in Sri Lanka have encountered significant challenges in interpreting and applying existing provisions of criminal law applicable to the online activity of citizens. Commission Chairman Justice L.T.B. Dehidenia says that the provision has not been adequately enforced to address online incitement to violence and has been misapplied to punish online content that does not constitute incitement. In view of the ongoing general concern, the Commission has requested the Minister to reconsider the timing of the proposed bill. This is on the basis that the strengthening of institutional capacity of law enforcement authorities to interpret and apply existing criminal law in good faith should precede any proposals to introduce new legislation with criminal offences pertaining to online activity. Proceeding with such legislation without such institutional reform will irreversibly jeopardize the freedom of speech and expression and related fundamental rights of the people of Sri Lanka. The Commission has made preliminary observations and recommendations on the online safety bill with a view to ensuring the bill's compatibility with the fundamental rights chapter of the Sri Lankan Constitution. Additionally, the Commission welcomes the observations of relevant stakeholders and the public on the online safety bill and requests that any comments and suggestions be forwarded. The Lawyers Collective has called on the government to withdraw the online safety bill and the anti-terrorism bill scheduled to be tabled for its first reading in Parliament tomorrow. Addressing a media briefing in Colombo today, President's Counsel Jayampathy Wickramaratne, who highlighted that certain provisions of these bills are unconstitutional, called on the government to withdraw the bills and first conduct public consultations. Meanwhile, President's Counsel Upul Jayasuriya, who also served as the chairman of the Board of Investments, said that these bills that violate the freedom of expression and democratic values of the country can affect the country's potential incoming investments.
In my view, for an act to be a terrorist act, there must be terror involved. Or that act must be in furtherance of a aim of a terrorist organization. For example, a strike in a service which has been declared essential under the Public Security Ordinance becomes then illegal. Then many acts in furtherance of the strike would come under this definition. And there is a clause which says that any act which endangers public safety or public health would come under this act, if that act is in respect of a service that has been declared essential. So such acts, if they are to be made illegal, then they must come under the normal law, under ordinary law, but not laws coming under terrorism, not an anti-terror act. And then the online safety bill seeks to establish a commission appointed by the President without any reference to the Constitutional Council process. The commission has very wide powers, for example, to give a directive to a person who has used social media and direct him or her to remove that particular post. Now, if the commission has gone outside its powers, that person would have to go to the Court of Appeal and get that order quashed. That will take time, that will cost money. And what would be the reaction of an ordinary young person who receives such an order? Is to immediately remove the post, because otherwise he or she can be prosecuted later in the magistrate's court. So there are several provisions which we find are unconstitutional, especially offensive to the freedom of speech and expression, including publication. And we urge the government not to table the bill, not to take any steps in respect of the two bills, and immediately have public consultations before taking any further steps.
Terrorism must have a very, very high threshold. But here, deliberately, the definition has been made so broad that whenever a government wants to come down hard on citizens legitimately protesting against the government, this can be used. It can be used as a heavy sledgehammer to suppress any form of dissent. In the current context, you don't need an anti-terror legislation. If there is some unforeseen situation that arises, a state of emergency can be proclaimed and regulations made to deal with that situation immediately. Then the online safety is an oxymoron. There is no safety that is prescribed in this. If this becomes law, that will be far more dangerous than anything else that has been passed in this country in the current context, where social media and the internet is used for dissemination of information. Inherent in it are the dangers of false information being spread also, but that must be contained through informal means and regulating conduct online. And that anyway happens. You can't make everything a law. And certainly in this instance, to enable a commission appointed by the president to decide what is true and what is false is totally unacceptable and anathemic to any democratic society.
With this kind of repressive laws that have been brought that are aimed at preventing the information that is getting into the social media and the society, then that is something that's going to affect the freedom of expression in this country, particularly the fundamental rights. If that happens, investors will not be deciding in favor of a country that has no freedom of expression, that has no democratic rights as they would wish. And even in this instance, the social media companies that are engaged in, and there are so many other media companies, they could also be charged by the Media Commission if they say that if you are continue to publish something that we consider it to be an offence or defamatory or whatever, then they could also be charged. So they will not remain in a country that imposes this kind of restrictions. So they will move out.
The Asian Internet Coalition, they have issued a statement on the 28th of September saying that this is an attempt to stifle the freedom of expression of the Sri Lankan people. And they have highlighted that there has been no consultation before these bills have been published. So it is very important that we as citizens be conscious of this attempt to erode democracy in our country. If these bills are enacted into law, the repercussions will be felt for many, many years to come. Just as much as we see the consequences of the PTA almost 40 years after it was introduced, we see the consequences long after the original parliament or the president who was instrumental in enacting them are gone.
Health Minister Keheliya Rambukwala says that it has been decided that the emergency purchases of drugs would be suspended with immediate effect based on the recommendations of the Medicinal Management and Strategizing Committee. In a further startling revelation, however, Minister Rambukwala said that the supplier of the drug immunoglobulin, which caused several complications in patients that the medicine was administered to, has provided falsified documents in the process to hoodwink the authorities and qualify to receive the bid. The minister revealed this while holding a press conference at the Ministry of Health today.
හදිසි මිලදී ගැනීම මහා නරක වචනයක් හැටියට තමයි මේ සමාජගත වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. කමිටි එකක් පත් කරා මේ සම්බන්ධව කටයුතු කරන්න. ඒ කමිටියේ තීන්දුවක් ගත්තා. වහාම ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන පරිදි හදිසි මිලදීම් ගැනීම නතර කරනවා. දැන් ගිය සුමානේ ඉඳන් අපි හදිසි මිලදී ගැනීම කියන එක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම නතර කරා. සාමාන්‍ය තත්ත්වයට අපිට යන්න පුළුවන් තැනකට ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා.
In the meantime, the Minister of Health addressed the issue of a registration certificate submitted by a company who imported the immunoglobulin drug, which had caused complications in some patients recently.
ඉමුනොග්ලොබින් කියන බෙහෙත සම්බන්ධව මේ දවස්වල විශාල වශයෙන් කතා ගණනාවක් පැතිරලා තිබෙනවා. මේ හදිසි මිලදීම් ගැනීමකින් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ අවස්ථාවේදී තුන්දෙනෙක් මේකට ඉදිරිපත් වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ තුන්දෙනාගෙන් අඩුම එක්කෙනාට තිබ්බ 130යි. ඒ 130ට මේක ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. හැබැයි ලබා දුන්නාට පස්සේ ඔවුන්ට සිද්ධ වෙනවා NMR එකේ ඒකට සහතිකයක් ලබා ගන්න. ඒ අනුව තමයි මේ 22500ක් වැල්ව්ස් ඕඩර් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ 22500 3,085ක් තමයි මේ වෙනකොට ලබලා දීලා තියෙන්නේ. හැබැයි මේ 3,085 ලබලා දුන්නාට පසුව අපිට ලැබිච්ච තවත් තොරතුරක් සමග මේ සම්බන්ධව කරපු විමර්ශනයේදී පැහැදිලි වෙනවා NMR එකේ සහතිකයක් මේ වෙනකොට දීලා තියෙනවා. ඒ අයට මේ ලිපිය ලැබුණෙත් නැහැ. එහෙම සහතිකයක් ඕන ඉදිරිපත් කරෙත් නැහැ. එතකොට බැලුව බැලමට මේක ව්‍යාජ සහතිකයක්. එසේ නැත්නම් ඒකට වග උත්තරකරුවන් හැටියට සිටින NMR එක ඒ සම්බන්ධව කරුණු ඉදිරිපත් කළ යුතුයි. ඔවුන් ඉදිරිපත් කරලා තියෙන කරුණු අනුව ඔවුන්ට තියෙන සාධක අනුව එහෙම ෆයිල් එකක්වත් නැහැ අපි ගාව. එහෙම ඉල්ලීමක්වත් අපිට ලැබිලා නැහැ. අපි එහෙම එකක් ඉෂුව කරලා නැහැ කියලා. එතකොට අපිට මේ තියෙන කරුණුත් එක්ක ව්‍යාජ සටහනක් වෙන්නට ඕනේ. මේ බෙහෙත් ටික ගෙනහලා තියෙන්නේ 3,085යි. 3,085ට තියෙනවා මිලියන 130ක පමණ ගෙවීමක්. මිලියන 40ක ගෙවීමක් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉතිරි ටික මේ වෙනකොට නතර කරලා තියෙනවා. ඒ බෙහෙත් වලත් ප්‍රශ්නයක් තිබිලා තියෙන නිසා ඒක සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම අත්හිටවලා තියෙනවා. ඊට අමතරව අපරාධ විමර්ශන අංශයට මා වෙනුවෙන් මගේ උපදේශකවරයෙක් පැමිණිල්ලක් කරලා තියෙනවා.
Minister of Ports and Aviation Nimal Siripala de Silva revealed today that the recent delays in flights have caused losses to the tune of $6 million to the national carrier Sri Lankan Airlines. This was revealed by the subject minister during a meeting with the management and trade unions of the Sri Lankan Airlines.
A meeting between the Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation Nimal Siripala de Silva and officials of Sri Lankan Airlines in a bid to discuss the matter of sudden cancellations and technical issues that occurred in Sri Lankan Airlines flights transpired today at the ministry premises.
පසුගිය දිනවල ශ්‍රී ලංකන් ගුවන් සේවාවේ ගුවන් යානා ප්‍රමාද වීමට සහ ගමන් නොකිරීමට ප්‍රධාන හේතුව වශයෙන් දැක්ුවේ තාක්ෂණික දෝෂ බව තමයි ඉංජිනේරුවරුන් කියා සිටියේ. නමුත් පාලනාධිකාරී කියා සිටියේ වෘත්තීය සමිති ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයක් අනුව අකුරට වැඩ කිරීමේ ක්‍රියාකලාපයක් අනුගමනය කිරීම තුලින් මේ තත්ත්වය උදා වී ඇති බවයි. ගුවන් යානා නියමුවන් අපට ඒ කියන්නේ ගුවන් යානයක් වෙනුවෙන් අපට 12 දෙනෙකුගේ වගේ ප්‍රමාණයක් දැනට ඉන්නවා. ගුවන් සේවා නීති රීති හා රෙගුලාසි අනුව ගුවන් නියමයෙකුට මාසයකට පැය 100ක් පියාසර කිරීමට අවසර තියෙනවා. අපිට ලැබිලා තියෙන වාර්තාවන් අනුව පැය 100ට පැමිණලා තියෙන්නේ ගුවන් නියමුවන් 3 දෙනෙක් පමණයි. සාමාන්‍ය වශයෙන් පැය 60ක් පමණයි කරලා තියෙන්නේ. එතන වැටුප් හා දීමනා පිළිබඳ වූ ප්‍රශ්නිකුත් තියෙනවා. ශ්‍රී ලංකන් ගුවන් සේවය බිලියන 1.2ක් ඇමරිකා එක්සත් ජනපද ඩොලර් ණය වෙලා තියෙනවා. මේ ණය සඳහා පොලිය ගෙවිය යුතු තිබෙනවා. පසුගිය දින සිදු වූ සිද්ධීන් අනුව අපිට හෝටල් වලට මේ ගුවන් මගින් දාන්නට සිදු වුණා. එයින් අපිට මිලියන 6ක පමණ පාඩුවක් ඇති වෙලා තියෙනවා.
Following the meeting, the management of Sri Lankan Airlines addressed the media.
ඒගොල්ල පොරොන්දු වුණා ප්‍රශ්න ඇති කරගන්නේ නැතුව එයාලයින් එක හොඳට ඉදිරියට ගෙනියන්න. දෙපැත්තම අවබෝධයෙන් වැඩ කරගෙන යන්න ඕනේ. වෘත්තීය සමිති ක්‍රියාත්මක කියලා මට කියන්න බෑ. නමුත් ඕගොල්ලෝ දන්නවනේ දැන් එයාලයින් එකට තියෙන්නේ හරි අඩු number of aircraft. අපි aircrafts ගන්න ගියාමත් අපිට ගන්න දුන්නේ නෑනේ. දැන් aircrafts ගන්නත් අමාරුයි. මොකද demand එක වැඩි. ගාණත් වැඩි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. කාටවත් වැරදි කියන්න බෑ. මේ රටේ ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්නකනේ ඉන්නේ අපි. ඉතින් අපි මේක manage කරගෙන ඉස්සරහට ගෙනියන්න ඕනේ.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe met with the leadership of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation and the Friedrich Ebert Foundation during his recent visit to Germany, where he addressed the Berlin Global Dialogue. During his discussion with the FNF, the head of state invited the foundation to strengthen their areas of work in the development of a digital and green economy and provide assistance in enhancing sustainable tourism in Sri Lanka. In a meeting with the FEF, President Ranil Wickremesinghe discussed the possibility of resuming the work of the foundation in Sri Lanka. During his recent visit to address the Berlin Global Dialogue, President Ranil Wickremesinghe met with representatives of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. While appreciating FNF's work carried out in Sri Lanka, the President invited the foundation to strengthen their areas of work in the development of a digital and green economy and assistance on sustainable tourism in Sri Lanka. Chairman of the FNF, Professor Karl-Heinz Pack, agreed with President Wickremesinghe on the necessity to undertake reforms to build a highly competitive social market economy in Sri Lanka. Future collaboration with the FNF under the framework of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, where Germany is a dialogue partner, was also discussed. In a subsequent meeting with the Friedrich Ebert Foundation, President Wickremesinghe discussed the possibility of resuming the work of the foundation in Sri Lanka. During the meeting, the President also briefed the FEF representatives on current economic and governance reforms to stabilize Sri Lanka's economy. Prevailing inclement weather continued to affect many parts of the island today, and the Department of Meteorology expects this to continue through the course of tomorrow. As such, the Department of Meteorology issued an advisory for heavy rains to areas in the southern province as well as the Kalutara and Ratnapura districts.
As several areas in the country continued with heavy rains, the highest rainfall was reported from the Hambantota area, amounting to 226.4 millimeters of rainfall. With heavy rains continuing in the region, certain areas belonging to the Beliatta and Tangol divisional secretariats in the Hambantota district were inundated. This followed as a result of the overflowing of the Kirama Oya. Meanwhile, the Tangol-Beliatta main road was flooded due to the overflowing of the Sitinamalu reservoir. In Kudavalla in Tangol, around 100 residences were inundated while the Valukaramaya temple was also flooded. As water levels of the Kalani, Gin, Nilwala and Kalu rivers continued to rise, the irrigation department further extended warnings to residents in the areas in close proximity to the said rivers. Several lowlands were also inundated after the Kalani river overflowed from the Nagalagam-Vidya area. The water level of the Kuda river, which is a tributary of the Kalu river, had reportedly risen to a flooding level from the Millakanda area. Due to rising water levels of the Kalu River, several lowlands in Anguruathata as well as the Horana Madugama main road were flooded. The irrigation department meanwhile highlighted that the river Gin had developed to a flooding level from the Badegama area. They also added that the Nilwala River had developed into a flood situation from the areas of Talagahagoda as well as Panadugama.
නැවත ලැබෙන වර්ෂාවකදී මේ සියලු ගංගාවන් අධික ජලගලණයකට පත් විය හැකි. ඒක නිසා මේ ගංගා භාවිතය ඉතා දැඩි සැලකිල්ලකින් සිදු කළ යුතුයි.
Meanwhile, residents of the Tumodara area were inconvenienced due to the overflowing of the Hamilton Canal from Nathandia, issued to 8 districts in the island. The Met Department issued an advisory for heavy rains to the areas of the southern province as well as Kalutara and Ratnapura districts. In their forecast for tomorrow, the Met Department said that showers or thunder showers will occur at times in the western, Sabaragamua, southern and northwestern provinces as well as in the Kandy and Norelia districts. They added that heavy rainfall exceeding 100 mm is likely in the Hambathura district during the next 24 hours.
හම්බන්තොට දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ සාමාන්‍ය මිලිමීටර් 100 ඉක්මන වර්ෂාපතන ලැබීමේ හැකියාවකුත් තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඌව සහ නැගෙනහිර පළාත්වල සන්ධ්‍යා කාලයේ හෝ රාත්‍රී කාලයේ වැසි හෝ ගිගුරුන් සහිත වැස්තත්යන් නිර්මාණය වීමේ හැකියාවකුත් තියෙනවා. අද දිනේට සාපේක්ෂව හෙට දිනේ වර්ෂාපතනයේ වැඩිවීමක් තියෙනවා. හැබැයි සම්පූර්ණ වශයෙන්ම මේ නිර්දිග මෝසමේ වර්ෂාපතනයේ අඩුවීමක් අපේක්ෂා කරන්නේ ඔක්තෝබර් 7 වෙනිදාන් පස්සේ.
Subsequently, the National Building Research Organisation extended early landslide warnings issued to 8 districts in the island. Accordingly, early landslide warnings issued to the Colombo, Gaul, Hambantota, Kalutara, Kandy, Kegaul, Matara and Ratnapura districts were extended further.
By considering last few days rainfall and the soil saturation of the rain areas, the issued landslide early warning message has been updated and extended to 17 p.m. tomorrow in the following areas. Warning level 2 alert amber warning was issued to Neluwa Division Secretary Division Gaul District, Ingiriya Division Secretary Division Kalutara District, Pasbaya Korle Division Secretary Division Kandy District, Kottapola and Pitapathara Division Secretary Division Matara District, Ayagama, Palmadulla, Kuruvita, Kalavana, Ahliyagoda, Kiriyalla, Ratnapura, Alapatha and Nivithigala Division Secretary Division Ratnapura District, Derana and Ruwanwela Division Secretary Division Kegaul District. In addition to that, warning level 1 watch yellow warning was issued to Seetawaka Division Secretary Division Colombo District, LPTA Division Secretary Division in Gaul District, Walasmulla Divisional Secretary Division Hambantota District, Walallavita, Matugama, Agalavatta and Burat Singhala Division Secretary Divisions in Kalutara District, Dehiyovita, Kegaul and Yatiyantota Division Secretary Division Kegaul District, Mulatian and Athurliya Division Secretary Division Matara District, Imbulpe and Kolonna Division Secretary Division Ratnapura District.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින් වැඩම ගොඩයි ගොඩම තමයි ස්වරාජ් ට්‍රැක්ටර් ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Welcome back. The Colombo Bourse closed in red today, dragged by losses in the financial and industrial stocks. The Colombo Stock Exchange all-share price index closed down 1.5% to end at 11,163.76 points, snapping 2 consecutive sessions of gains. John Keel's Holdings and Brown's Investments were the top losers on the index, falling 1.3% and 3.5% respectively. Trading volume on the ASPI fell to 23.2 million shares from 76.6 million shares in the previous session. The S&P SL20 meanwhile fell by 1.4% to settle at 3,150.71 points. Equity market turnover fell to 686.7 million rupees from 1.39 billion rupees in the previous session. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to market turnover, while the banking sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 127.4 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers, purchasing shares worth 629.7 million rupees. Meanwhile, market analysts say that low activity in primary and secondary markets will continue as a reaction to the country not meeting International Monetary Fund recommendations on time. Dilushka Dimel joins us now with a few thoughts to round off our market outlook segment for this week.
From an equity front, the ASPI increased 80 points while the S&P increased 19 points last week, despite uncertainty brought forth from Sri Lanka falling short of its IMF requirements. However, the market did maintain a low turnover during the short week. We expect that the uncertainty in the market will weigh down the market until the IMF decides to disperse the second tranche. Looking at the government securities, there was a 220 billion primary bond auction held on the 25th of September, where the complete offering was accepted. The bill auction held on the 26th of September offered 50 billion rupees, with the whole offering being accepted, while the shorter tenures saw a larger decline in the rates. While secondary market activity was relatively low last week, there was a delayed reaction to the IMF agreements not being met, and this was seen today with the 3 to 5 tenured government securities increasing around 20 basis points. From a global commodity perspective, global oil prices ended the week $1 higher on the back of the expectations of higher global demand in line with the upcoming winter season and the pickup in the Chinese economy.
How did the rupee fare against other major currencies during the day? Let's find out. Sri Lanka's watermelon plantations has opened a cinnamon processing centre in Udugama with an investment of 90 million rupees. The centre, which boasts a capacity of 100,000 kilos per annum, is expected to generate more than 200 job opportunities. Meanwhile, Hatton National Bank and Standard Chartered Bank have won the Best Trade Deal of the Year award for Issuing Bank and Confirming Bank at the Trade and Supply Chain Finance Programme Awards organised by the Asian Development Bank. Sri Lanka's watermelon plantations opened its cinnamon processing centre in Udugama, Galle. The processing centre has been completed with an investment of 90 million rupees and operates under good manufacturing practice standards. The facility was opened by Watermelon Plantations PLC Director Vish Govindasamy. Spanning over 100 hectares of cinnamon cultivated land, the cinnamon processing centre will have a processing capacity of 900,000 cinnamon trees with an annual output of 100,000 kilos of processed cinnamon in 2 harvesting seasons. The centre is also equipped for cinnamon leaf oil processing. Further, the centre is expected to generate more than 200 direct and indirect job opportunities. Meanwhile, in a separate statement, Watermelon Plantations said that the Chief Executive Officer of the company, Binesh Pananwala, resigned from his position on the 30th of September. Accordingly, the firm confirmed that from the said date, Pananwala will cease to be Chief Executive Officer of the Watermelon Company and its subsidiary, Watermelon Dairy Limited. Recognizing the contribution to supporting trade in Asia and the Pacific, HNB and Standard Chartered Bank were awarded Best Trade Deal of the Year award for Issuing Bank and Confirming Bank, respectively. Both HNB and Standard Chartered received the award at the recent Trade and Supply Chain Finance Programme Awards organized by the Asian Development Bank. The banks were acknowledged for their vital role in transactions that facilitated the import of 200 metric tons of milk powder to Sri Lanka during a critical period of milk shortage caused by depleted foreign reserves, surging inflation, and challenges in opening letters of credit. That's all the news I have for you for this evening. I'm Jonathan Benedict. Thank you. You've been a lovely pleasure being on news today. I'll see you again tomorrow at the same time, same place. Good night. God bless.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.